Hello everybody, this is Carla again, and this time I'm here with a review for a book. Um, the first book in Rick Riordan's Magnus and the Gods of Asgard series was released about a month ago. It took me a while to get it, but I finally read it. It's titled The Sword of Summer, and again, it's the first in a new series for Rick Riordan, and this time we're dealing with Norse gods, the Norse pantheon, which I wasn't never really as into as I was the Greek and Roman pantheon, but I still loved it very much. Like, part of my childhood was, anime and stuff, so I was a lot into watching Japanese animation. One of them was Senseiya, and they dealt a lot with different pantheons, especially the Greek and Roman, but they also had a season in which they touched upon the Asgardian gods, and that kind of drew me in right away because they're not as prolific as the Greek and Roman gods are. Like, they're not everywhere like the Greek and Roman gods are, but they're very interesting, and they have both similarities and differences that I always found very intriguing. Like, I love Rick Riordan's books. I read as much of his books as I can get my hands into, but I never got into the Egyptian ones. I never really read them. Wasn't really interested because that particular pantheon I really know next to nothing about. I'm sure it's very interesting, and I aim to read them at some point, but I haven't yet because I really want to learn. And again, I love Rick Riordan's books, so I hope to read them, but I just haven't yet. When Magnus came out with the first book, I immediately had to get it because I know not as much, but a lot about about the Norse mythology, and I thought it would be an interesting take. And the first thing that crossed my mind when I saw that he was going to sorry, my throat is a bit off right now, but when the first thing that crossed my mind when I saw that he was going to do a Norse series, it's excuse me for a second. Yeah, apart from the fact that Magnus shares a last name with a certain other character that we all know and love from his previous series, the first thing that crossed my mind was, how the heck is he going to do this? Because Greek and Roman, yeah, there are some moments that are kind of gory and stuff, but you can sort of make them funny in a way, like, oh, Kronos ate his children, ha ha ha, maybe you should vomit them or something. Yeah, you can make it funny, but Norse, like, they revel in the goriness. Like, Vikings like that, Norse culture like that, the fighting and the guts and the killing, and the gorier the kill, the better it was for them. So I was very curious as to how Riordan would take that and make it kid friendly, because again, all his mythology series are middle grade level. So I was like, really, how are you going to do this? And I thought maybe he was going to shy away from it, like try to just skip out on a lot of stuff. Like, for example, you have like the How to Train Your Dragon movies that I also really love, and they're about Vikings, and yeah, they have their moments, when it's like, oh, Vikings fighting, rawr, that kind of stuff. But for the most part, they kind of avoid mythology altogether, and they avoid gore altogether. Like, they say a lot that they're very rough and stuff, but they don't actually show it. So I thought it was going to be like that. But I was surprised, honestly, when I read The Sword of Summer, because Riordan did not shy away from the gore. Just that mention of, like, Loki being chained with his son's, entrails. Oh, God. That alone just gave me chills. And it's very, there's this thing that the Percy Jackson and the Heroes of Olympus series had, that the monsters couldn't really die. And I thought it was interesting in a way because I liked that they could come back, but at the same time I'm like, if you're not killing monsters, what hope do I have for you to kill people? You know, because usually in movies and stuff, you know, you have a PG-13 movie, you can kill a robot or an alien or a non-human looking creature and still have it be PG-13, whereas if you do the same to a human, it might push the rating up. I thought it was going to be, you know, it would make sense for the monsters to stay dead in a middle grade movie because, hey, they're monsters. You don't necessarily, I mean, they're not people. You do get attached to some of them, but they're not people. So I was kind of, it was one of the things that actually bummed me a little from the Percy Jackson series. But then he didn't mind having people die. I mean, we never saw them most of the time. It was kind of just mentioned, so and so died, blah blah blah. But he kind of made up for that. In the Norse series now, he's killing monsters left and right, and I love that they can't come back. I mean, so far as we know, they can't just come back. And I kind of love it because, you know, after you go through all this effort to kill this giant thing, for it to not stay dead would really suck. But yeah, that was one of the parts that I really liked. Speaking of, let me talk a bit about the protagonist of the series, who's Magnus Chase. He's Annabeth's cousin, as you know. He's from Boston. He's been homeless for the last 2 years since his mother died. That kind of stuff. And when I read the first few chapters in a preview online, I was sort of afraid that Magnus would be a bit too close to Percy, because I like that the whole book in one point of view thing has come back, because that was the appeal of Percy Jackson. Percy was such a great narrator, such a funny narrator, and I was kind of afraid that Magnus would just be too similar to Percy. And although they are similar, I mean, they're both really sassy and sarcastic, and, you know, it's there, you can see it. But at the same time, they're very different. Because I think Percy always kind of had this innocence to him, even in, you know, in the later books when he was older. There was also always kind of an innocence to him, kind of a naivete to him. He didn't know much about the Greek world, and somehow it always seemed to surprise him in a way. And yeah, he didn't know much about it, so he had to have other characters explain to him, which also happens here, but it was kind of one of those things where Percy would hear the explanation he was given and still be like, wait, you're actually being serious right now, like, so there is kind of an innocence to him, a kind of a wonder to him about this whole world that just never really ended, you know. Even later on when he was older, he was still being surprised by stuff in the Greek and Roman pantheons. Magnus is not like that. Magnus, I mean, yeah, he does ask some questions, and he does get some answers, and the answers make no freaking sense, and then Magnus is like, oh, okay. You know, he's very much, and I guess this comes from, you know, living in the streets, he's very much just go with the flow, you know, like, oh, a pigeon is talking to me, great, or, you know, like, well, this is Thor speaking to me, awesome, or, you know, I have to destroy a giant, well, what can I do? He's very much like, just go with it, even if the stuff is the craziest thing he'll ever hear. You know, he got used to Valhalla, like, really quickly, and I like that. I mean, normally I would say that's not good development, but I like that because Magnus is the kind of kid that has to roll with the punches. He was also a lot more self-deprecating than Percy is, which is saying a lot because Percy can be self-deprecating. That's part of what made him funny, but at the same time, Magnus, I mean, I love Percy. Percy will always be my favorite character in a Riordan book ever. I love him, and he's just my homeboy. But I feel like Magnus is a lot closer to my brand of humor in a way. Like he's a lot more self-deprecating. He's a bit more aloof in a way, and I thought that was very good, because I was really afraid that it was just going to be same old, and it was not. It was very different. The other characters are fantastic as well. I love Hearthstone. Okay, words cannot describe how much I love that guy. Like, not just the fact that he has a disability, which is awesome, because normally disabled characters don't do much in fiction like that. But Hearthstone, he pulled his weight. He was really helpful through the entire quest, and it was so heartfelt, like how much he had to give up. He barely had anything to begin with. Like, his parents hated him, he had his disability, and other people mocked him, and he gave everything up for his magic. I really love him, and I love that he's like point blank, even when he has to say it in sign language. Like, it's so great. He's so sweet, and I just love him. Blitz was awesome. It was interesting, because you never really expect an elf to be into fashion, and that was the best part of Blitz. Like, it was so unexpected. Like, you kind of picture him as this gruff dude, because that's the way we just see elves nowadays. Like, I'm sorry, not elves, dwarves. Nowadays, you just see them. I mean, it's the Lord of the Rings mentality. You just imagine them as like buff, chubby, bearded, gruff men. And here is Blitzen, designing clothes, and that's awesome. I love that he can't do much of anything else other than design clothes. But if he wants to design clothes, that's what he's going to excel at, and it's great, because it goes to show that you don't need to be the best at everything to have one thing that you're really good at. It's great. Sam was amazing. I love Sam. Okay, she is kick-ass. I love my kick-ass females, but Sam, man, she's so awesome. And I like that she's just a teenager at the same time. Like, she has her issues, and she's really smart, and she's really serious, but at the same time she's a teenager, and she has to deal with homework and strict grandparents and just, this whole thing. And I love that she's not your typical, white Christian girl. Like, you wouldn't expect someone from the Islamic religion to actually be involved at all with Vikings. But here she is, and she's both faithful to her religion and her beliefs, and dealing with the fact that she's in the middle of this whole crazy Valhalla thing, and actually loving it. I love that she wants to fly. I love it, because I wanted to be an astronomer when I was a kid, so everything that has to do with space and everything that has to do with flying, like, it reminds me of myself. Like, I'm 30 years old, and still, every time I take a plane anywhere, like every time I fly anywhere, I have to get a window seat, because I just love seeing everything below, as we go up. And I'm like a 5-year-old with my nose stuck against the glass, because I just love flying so much, and that resonated so much with me when Samira was like, I want to fly, that's all I want to do. And it was so great. I love her. She's kick-ass. For Daughter of Loki, I think that's kind of the idea that Rick was trying to sell here, that what Loki has that separates him from everyone else is not the fact that he's evil, it's the fact that he's smart. He's sharp as a tack. He's so smart, and he uses that for evil, whatever, but he is so smart, and it makes total sense that his children would inherit that. And Sam is so smart. I love her. She's amazing. About the minor characters, I love Loki. I'm a Yankees fan, so I'm not surprised that he roots for the Red Sox. Sorry for any Sox fans out there. It's just the way I feel. He was. I mean, I think Rick was trying to kind of separate him from the Marvel Loki. I don't think there's much difference. I mean, yes, Marvel Loki's kind of pained and you know a lot more brooding and just in a sense it's more attractive to the audience that way because he's been through so much and people just kind of want to give him a hug or whatever, even if he's evil, because you can see how much he suffered. This Loki doesn't have that, but still they both kind of have that same seductive type of intelligence. And I mean, there wasn't very much difference in my mind. I appreciated the fact that he stated that Loki and Thor aren't brothers. Because I think a lot of people will be very surprised by that. But it's true. And I like Loki. He was smart. I like that he seems so sincere with Magnus. He's like, yeah, I'm trying to delay Ragnarok. No, you're not. You know? I mean, but it wasn't obvious. He actually seemed sincere about it when he talked to Magnus. And it was only until later that Magnus realized, you know what? No, he's not trying to delay Ragnarok. He is actually pushing for it because that's Loki. That's what he does. What I really did find different was Thor. I mean, Thor was awesome. As much as I like Marvel's Thor, because hey, Chris Hemsworth, who wouldn't like that? But this Thor was awesome. It's like it reminded me in a way like the way some movies sort of portray Santa Claus. You know, like this big bumbling lumberjack type guy who really doesn't understand sarcasm. That was kind of what Thor felt like to me, and I really like that because I always find that funny. And you know, for someone who's so famous to be that much of a blundering, you know, clueless man, that was kind of funny. And I love that he integrated, you know, the whole cable TV thing and tons of other shows. You always love it when Riordan throws in a reference to one of your other fandoms, for example. So I really like that. The one thing that I really liked too was Jack. Even with the little dig at Riptide that he threw in there, Jack was awesome. You think Frey, you sort of think like surfer dude, and for me, Jack was kind of a representation of that. He was, the way he spoke, it's totally the way I speak. It's like, dude, what, you know? And I love the fact that there's a sword that talks. I mean, why hasn't that been done before? That's what I'm thinking. And it was awesome. Jack was really nice. I like the idea that Magnus sort of had to like win his trust in a way. That was very interesting. And then at the end, what I really love is this idea that you don't have to be a fighter in order to be a leader. That was very interesting to me because in Percy Jackson, all the main characters, like either Percy or Annabeth or Jason, they're all fighters. They're all really great fighters because they're, you know, the sons of the big three thing, and you know, the biggest gods, and they have to be fighter gods. Magnus is not a fighter god. Is not the son of a fighter god. He's the son of Frey, who's kind of just there, but he rules over summer and stuff, and he's really not a fighter. And yet Magnus was the one who was chosen by Loki in this case too, because he had potential to start Ragnarok or stop it. You know, it's kind of, it was up to Magnus to make the decision, and he's not a fighter. That doesn't mean that he's, you know, the kind that you can step on. Like, even if he's a homeless kid, he's got his pride, he's got his strength. He might not be able to hack at you with a sword, but he is smart and he knows what people need from him. And he's sort of the mediator, and I like the whole analogy with the whole fire and ice thing, because Magnus, just like he is the middle ground between fire and ice, he's the middle ground for everything. He's the mediator. He's the one that comes between the two parts and solves the conflict without having to go into a fight. So I thought that was very interesting. I mean, just the idea that he has a sword but he doesn't use it to fight was amazing to me. And it's something that immediately sets him apart from Percy and Jason and all the other heroes that Rick has done before. So that was great. And I have to say, I really loved the feeling of family that we got in this book, because in Rick's previous books we didn't really get much of that. I mean, there was Percy and Annabeth and Grover in the first book of the Percy Jackson series, and you sort of felt, yes, they're friends, they're kind of a unit. But then as the books moved on, Grover was there less and less, and then Heroes of Olympus came up, and this was a huge team, and you knew that they just sort of had their own sub-teams. We never really had a team that was so compenetrated with each other in a way. And I got that from this one. Like, these four people, Magnus, Sam, Hearth, and Blitz, they really are a family. It's the first time in Rick's books that I really get that from a group that isn't family. Like, I mean, you see Percy and his mother, obviously, but just, it felt so real. Like, when the whole empty cup thing came about and Magnus decided they were empty cup family, you know, that hit me very hard. It was very emotional to me. It's like these four stragglers who've never really had anything, who've been always so different, they came together and they formed a family. And it was just so great. I think that's my favorite thing about this book, that it really feels like a family. It's not just four people thrown together into a quest for no reason. They really are a group. They really are a unit. And each one of them brings something to the table, and they solve the problems they have. They've solved everything they face head on. And that's great to me. It was pretty much my favorite thing of the entire book. Anyway, I have been talking about this for 22 minutes now, so I'm gonna try to cut it short. And all in all, it was a great book, a great start to a new series. I love that that he managed to touch upon Norse mythology without watering it down for kids, without dumbing it down for the kids. Still made it interesting. A bit complicated with all the names, but you know, he has a glossary at the back, so that's not too bad. Just in general, really great start to a new series. Funny, emotional, educational, just the best of Rick Riordan is back, basically. I can't wait to see where this goes. The next book, The Hammer of Thor, is coming out next October, so we still have a while to wait, but I'm gonna be waiting for it eagerly. So, yeah, love this book. Not perfect. I still have some issues, like I didn't like the last chapter. It felt, because we've read the whole book from Magnus's point of view, so it felt kind of, it came out of nowhere. And I don't necessarily, we really needed to know that Randolph was in it with Loki, but he could have done it a different way, so that bugged me. And another thing that bugged me was we never saw Hearth actually get his staff. I would have wanted to see that, because I love Hearth so much, and I would have loved to see, we only heard it from Blitz. It's kind of anticlimactic. I wanted to see it, so for the next time, I guess. Minor nitpicks, but overall I really loved the book. Can't wait to see where it goes next, and just what's up next for this dysfunctional little family that I just grew to love. So that's about it for me now, and I will see you guys in my next review. Bye.